Good morning and thank you for staying with us. I am Norma Shita, your host for today's Poly TV News. Our main headline today is the urgent action needed to address climate change threats in the coastal areas. Global coastal adaptations are incremental in scale, short-sighted, and inadequate to address the root causes of vulnerability to climate change. According to the international team of researchers, the 17 experts, including Prof. Robert Nichols, Professor of Climate Change Adaptation at the University of East Anglia, UEA, have contributed to the paper. Status of Global Coastal Adaptation, which was published in the Nature Climate Change. Prof. Nichols said recent analysis conclude that despite adaptation undertaken in all region and sector, global action remain incremental in scale. Policies and projects are usually short-sighted and single-hazard focused, inadequately address the root causes of exposure, and vulnerability are poorly monitored. There is also little evidence of effective risk reduction in relation to implemented response. To address these problems, the expert says decisive action by the international policy community is needed to identify and tackle global priorities in key risk areas around countries. Dr. Alexander Magnan of the Institute for Sustainable Development and International Relations, IDDRI, is the first author of the paper. Dr. Magnan said assessing climate adaptation is a burning scientific and policy question because, as today's global climate risk will experience a 2 to 4-fold increase by the end of this century, depending on the global greenhouse gas emission trajectory. We need to know the current status towards addressing its consequences. The expert conclude that today's global coastal adaptation is halfway to the full adaptation potential. Taking sea level rise as one example, the expert says the risks to low-lying coasts are already detectable. Prof. Nichols said by the end of the century, in the absence of ambitious adaptation efforts, this risk will become significant, widespread, and possibly irreversible in tolls and Arctic coasts. The lower estimates for delta are still giving a concerns these geographies, population size, and economic importance globally. The multi-dimensional and locally grounded assessment developed in the study for coastal adaptation confirmed the need to drastically scale up adaptation for policies and action around the globe, from local government and stakeholder to the international climate policy arena. And now more news on this celebrity. Coldplay have put plans to tour their new albums on hold due to concerns over the environmental impact of the concert. We're not touring this album, frontman Chris Martin told the BBC News. We're taking time over the next year or two to work out how our tour can not only be sustainable, but how can it be effectively beneficial. All of us have to work out the best way of doing our job. He continues, saying the band wanted their future tours to have a positive impact. Coldplay's new album, Everyday Life, is released on Friday, and instead of spending months on the road, they're playing 2 gigs in Jordan, which will be broadcast free to the global audience on YouTube. The WWF welcomed Coldplay's initiative, saying it is fantastic to see world-famous artists stepping up to protect our planet. We all have responsibility to lead by example in the face of this climate and nature crises. Inaction is not an option if we preserve our planet for the future generation, said Gareth Redmond King, the organization head of climate change. Staging a world tour isn't as simple as bugging Chris Martin and his bandmates in the back of a minivan with a map and a year's supply of digestive. In fact, the band last tour employed 109 crew, 32 trucks, and 9 bus drivers who traveled to 5 continents, playing to 5.4 million people at 122 concerts. There is no easy way to calculate the band's carbon footprint, but the music industry's most recent figures suggest that live music generates 405,000 tons of greenhouse gas emission in the UK every year. It's not flight that caused the problem. Friends traveling to from shows are the biggest source of pollution, but there's an environmental cost to producing merchandise, powering the spotlight, and moving stages from venue to venue. At the most extreme end of the scale, the ambitious clause structure that U2 took on the road in 2009 required 120 trucks to shift it around. According to one environmental group, the band generate the equivalent carbon footprint of a return flight to Mars. Since then, the industry has stepped up its effort to become more sustainable. Coldplay are going one step further. They don't want to be carbon neutral, but they also want the tour to have effectively beneficial to the planet. And by giving up their concerts on hold, they're giving up a huge payday. The Head Full of Dream tour made $523 million. The industry will be watching to see what solution they come up with next. And that's the news for right now, and I'll be right back in the next hour. Thank you and goodbye.